All right, let's dive right into a topic that sounds complicated, but really, it has a direct impact on your wallet and, well, the entire global economy. We're talking about President Trump's tariffs. Let's break it down.
Have you ever been shopping and wondered, hey, why did the price of that French wine, or that Japanese car, or even that new phone just jump up? Well, the answer often comes down to one really powerful and pretty controversial economic tool. And that tool is a tariff. Now, at its core, it's just a tax on goods coming into the country. But here's the key thing to get. That cost trickles down. So a 10% tariff on a $100 product means the importer now pays $110. But that extra $10, it almost always finds its way to the price tag you see in the store.
Okay, so if tariffs just make things more expensive for us, why on earth would you use them? It's a fair question. Let's get into the administration's thinking behind this.
It really boils down to three main goals. First, the big one, boosting American manufacturing. The idea is, if foreign goods are more expensive, you'll be more likely to buy American. Second, it's about tackling the trade deficit. That's the gap where the U.S. buys a lot more from other countries than it sells to them. And finally, tariffs are used as leverage, a big bargaining chip, to pressure other countries on their own trade practices.
Now, it's not like there's just one single tax on everything that comes in. No, the policy is actually a mix of different strategies targeting different goods in different countries in very specific ways.
In fact, you can think of this less like a single hammer and more like a whole toolkit. There are three distinct types of tariffs being put to work, each designed to do a different job.
So let's look at what's in that toolkit. First, you've got a broad universal tariff. That's a baseline 10% tax on pretty much everything. But then things get much more targeted. You have reciprocal tariffs that hit specific countries, particularly those with big trade surpluses. And then there are sector-specific tariffs, which are meant to protect key American industries, like steel and cars.
This chart is where you can really see how targeted these reciprocal tariffs are. The rates are all over the place depending on the country. We're talking 35% for Canada, but then a whopping 50% for Brazil. And these numbers aren't even set in stone. China's rate, for example, was actually negotiated down to 30%. It just goes to show you, these are as much a political negotiating tool as they are a fixed economic policy. Of course, a move this big doesn't happen in a vacuum. It sends these massive ripples across the entire globe, affecting economies everywhere, including right here at home. So let's look at that impact.
It really is a classic two-sided coin. On one side, you have foreign countries dealing with higher costs to sell their stuff here. And what do? They often retaliate with their own tariffs on American goods. But then you flip that coin over, and here in the U.S., we're the ones facing higher prices. Businesses that need imported parts suddenly have their costs go through the roof. And this just sparks this huge debate. Are these tariffs actually creating enough jobs to make up for the economic pain they cause?
To make this super clear, let's just zoom in on one thing. A washing machine. After specific tariffs were slapped on imported washers, studies found the average price shot up by as much as $92. That's not some abstract tax on a foreign company. That's a direct hit to the budget of an American family just trying to buy an appliance. It's a perfect example of how a policy decision in Washington ends up on a price tag in your local store. And all of this, as you can imagine, brings us to the controversy and the really uncertain road ahead. This policy is being challenged, not just on the economic front, but on the legal front too.
One of the biggest points of contention is a simple but crucial question. Who actually pays for the tariffs? The goal might be to tax other countries, but this 2019 study came to a pretty stark conclusion. It found that, in the case of the tariffs on China, U.S. importers and, by extension, American consumers ended up bearing the full cost. That's a central argument for anyone who opposes the policy.
So, what happens now? Well, the situation is moving fast, and it's heading toward a really critical period. Back in May, a court actually ruled that using emergency powers for this was illegal, but the policy is still moving forward during appeals. The new tariffs are set to kick in on August 7th, and then, later in the year, you've got these huge negotiation deadlines with China and Mexico. It's a lot.
And all of this leaves us with one massive, looming question. As these deadlines get closer and the economic pressure builds, will this aggressive tariff strategy actually succeed in reshaping the global economy? Or could it backfire and trigger a trade war that starts to unravel the whole thing for everybody? The truth is, that's the big question, and the answer is still being written.